it's interesting when you put it that way, because I would think the banks would really jump on board, because this would be a great way for them to provide enhanced services to their clients and to perhaps create stickier relationships.
Sure.
And, a great opportunity for consolidation of assets, I would say. It's like, hey, look, I'm showing you all of this and this is what I can do for you. And I also feel it would be great for consumers as well, because now all these banks are competing for them and they want the whole pot. And as a result, they're actually getting like very good service and like very good, it might be planning, it might be investing, it might be a bundle of services. And I think we do need a bit more of that competition when it comes to the Canadian financial market.
So that's a great train of thought. So assuming, if there's no one there to ask for the data, then I don't need to give it to anyone. So you've got to assume that the banks, and we'll talk about this now, right? The banks are looking at the use cases. What services do I want to provide? However, it's probably not right or fair or serving of the government's intentions if you don't have the ability for, the rules for fintechs and other financial services entities to enter the game. So you can't really launch if it's just the banks, and the banks have created a bunch of services and no one else can get in, because that doesn't help us with competition and that doesn't help us with choice. So I certainly hope that's not the case, and I don't think that'll happen. So I think you've got to delay, even if the banks are ready, you've got to delay the launch of it until you've got other providers that are in and able to do it. And then, honestly, you will have, my bank was going to look at I don't want David to use Mint. I'm going to provide the same functionality. Well, then I get choice, right? Which is what we're looking for. And maybe the price will go down. So that's what we're kind of looking for. So yeah, we need to wait and see what's coming. But that there's a whole bunch of large tech, small techs, fintech, startups, and two guys in their garage all thinking, I've got this great idea. People are going to love it. I can sell it. I just need to access your data to turn around whatever magic I've come up with.
Definitely. It's interesting because back to that competition point, I feel like in some regards, there is a bit of a monopoly within our financial institutions, but
oligopoly
or oligopoly is the way to say it. But this will be a good chance for them to actually prove themselves, right? Because our financial system is very secure, it's very stable, it's very reliable, which is great. And, I know that, okay, once I know my bank account's safe. Once my check goes in there, my biweekly paycheck goes in there, I don't worry about...
You still call it paycheck. Paper. There you go.
Yes. Well, I have a retirement paycheck project that I've been working on, so we'll talk about that in another episode. But it's really interesting because we have that trust and we have that faith in our institutions because they've proven it, right? So while it might be an oligopoly, there is a reason for that. There's a reason that there's such a high barrier for entry because of everything that they do. So they've proven themselves through the trials and tribulations, I would say. But I think they do need to be tested a bit when it comes to competition, because perhaps there is a bit of they're a bit complacent, right? They're like, oh, everyone's here. We're happy. They're happy with us. We're doing a great job. No need to really expand it any further. But I feel like this will kind of force them to do be a bit more competitive. Maybe David has assets at Bank One and Bank Two, and now, he's using open banking and they can see all his assets. He's getting a comprehensive view with each institution. They're like, oh my God, we really want David. His mortgage is going to be, expiring. He needs to renew it soon. Let's give him a better rate and try to...
my banker, you heard this, right?
Right? Let's give David a better rate and get him to consolidate his assets here. And let's give him a bundle, on his checking accounts and his saving accounts. And let's, throw us, let's waive his RESP fees for his kids. Let's get him in here. I think that would be a great approach for both sides, because the banks, now have clients for life because they're providing all these amazing services and people really feel the loyalty. And the client is getting benefit, like actual benefit that they can see.
What's interesting is this question actually provides some of the answer to the previous question you had, right? In that they're so stable and they already have so much for many of the bankers, not all bankers, I met many of the bankers who feel like you're right. A broader competition will actually allow them to provide not only better service, but gain better ground for their consumers. But for many others in the bank, and perhaps those who are more traditional and been in the banks longer time, the feeling is, yes, we could definitely be a little more competitive, and we could gain 2 or 3 percentage points in some of these businesses. If we're not issuing all the credit cards we can, we could issue a few more. But for them, those gains are marginal. And the devils they know, and the customers they already have, and the steadiness and the loyalty that the customer display to them and is evident to them is in fact more comforting and allows them to just churn out, and has allowed them to continue to churn out these record profit rate, right? The efficiency rate of these banks, the ratings, and whenever there has been, staff reduction, it's all about gaining these efficiency ratings. And so for a lot of the banks, in the sense of competition is, it's not worth sacrificing what we already have in order to possibly giving up something you already have in order to gain the few extra points. And so the status quo is key. Now, I've often said this in previous panels and discussions, that 2009, the global financial challenge for many of the banks was a turning point for many of the financial regime for many countries. It was a turning point. The UK, for example, that really upended their entire financial regulatory regime in order to meet the challenges, the unforeseen challenges of that period. Canada, came through relatively unscathed, very stable, very calm. And that stability, in fact, my thesis has been one of to the greatest detriment of Canadian financial services innovation, because it allows the banks to continue on the current course they charted and say, well, look at the stability. We're the envy of the world, and we provided, we protect your money. We'll continue to provide your money. We may be seen as conservative. We may be seen as a fast follower and slow moving, but we've done our job in protecting our customers' money. But in a more disrupted and more chaotic, some argue, environment like the UK, it really not only upended and allowed a new financial regulatory regime to come on board, but for many of those who left the banks, they also became founders of some of the most successful neobanks and fintech startups in the UK. So it provided a very fertile environment. Some of that chaos, in fact, we've provided some of the fertile environment for innovation,
right,
in the UK.
Well, it's that saying, right? You always need some discomfort to push you forward. A comfortable person or firm does not grow. Right.
And they made that leap. Now, what's interesting is that the 5th-year anniversary of open banking in the UK, there are many feel that they've become too complacent in their success, that they've stopped sort of pushing the envelope, and they're no longer perhaps the leading open finance or open banking jurisdiction on the world stage. And what can they do and they just appoint a new head for the entity that heads up open banking as they're reviewing, their mandate in the future. And so that's what you need. And this is the great lesson of Canadian, whether it's Finance Canada, we any successive government that comes in after this one, or even the current government, is how you have to always be looking at, where else can we improve? What else can we do to innovate? What else can we do to really not be comfortable with where we are and push for that discomfort, even if there's no chaos? And how do we push our envelope so that we continue to evaluate where should we be in 5 years, and not get to that 5-year horizon and sit comfortably on your rear end and enjoy the fruits of your work, right? And so that's the difference.
Well, I was telling David just last week how discomfort is good for you, and he didn't believe me. So
I don't like to be uncomfortable. Sorry, discomfort, right?